What if a single garden could feed people for decades without constant replanting? Long before modern farming systems, many cultures created living ecosystems designed to produce food year after year. These landscapes looked like forests, but they were actually carefully designed food systems. Have you ever wondered if it might be possible to plant a garden just once and have it feed you for a lifetime? It is a gentle thought, a quiet departure from the yearly toil of digging and sowing that we have come to know so well. Imagine a place that looks less like a farmer's field and more like a young, vibrant woodland. Sunlight filters through the leaves of tall trees, dappling the ground below where berries ripen on bushes and herbs release their scent into the air. Here, food grows not in neat, straight rows, but in a happy jumble of life. This remarkable place is called a food forest. A food forest is a system of growing food that mimics the structure and function of a natural forest. It is an intentional community of plants, carefully chosen to work together in harmony. Unlike a conventional vegetable patch, which often needs to be cleared and replanted each season, a food forest is built to last. It is a living, breathing ecosystem designed with patience and a deep understanding of natural patterns. The goal is not to conquer nature with plows and chemicals, but to gently guide its immense creative power towards providing a steady and diverse supply of food. It is a partnership, a quiet agreement between the gardener and the land. As you wander through such a place, you begin to see that it is more than a garden. It is a sanctuary. The air feels cooler here, sheltered by the canopy of leaves above. The sounds are different too, filled with the hum of bees and the quiet rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth. Here one finds apples, plums, nuts, berries, herbs, leafy greens, all growing in the same small patch of earth. It is a testament to the idea that abundance does not require vast, empty fields. Instead, it can arise from a complex and beautiful tapestry of interconnected life, a system that sustains itself for decades. This is not a new or radical idea, but rather a very old one. For countless generations, people all over the world have cultivated gardens in this way. They understood that by copying the forest, they could create a resilient and productive source of nourishment that required less work as it matured. It was a form of agriculture rooted in observation and respect for the natural world. Today, as we seek more sustainable ways to live, we are beginning to look back at these ancient food gardens, rediscovering the profound wisdom held within their quiet, leafy depths. They offer a gentle lesson in how we might feed ourselves for many years to come. So, what exactly is this living structure we call a food forest? It is best understood as a garden of layers, much like the different levels one finds in a natural woodland. Each layer has its own purpose and is filled with plants that thrive in the specific conditions of that level. The system is built vertically, from the sky down to the soil itself. This stacking of plants packs life and productivity into a small area. It is a clever, efficient use of space. Every niche is filled with something useful and beautiful. At the very top, the canopy layer, tall, standard trees, walnuts, chestnuts, large fruit trees. They create shade and a sheltered microclimate below. Below that, the lower tree layer, smaller dwarf fruit trees, pears, apples, plums, cherries, enjoying dappled sunlight. This layer is often the most productive for familiar fruits. Beneath the fruit trees, the shrub layer, currants, gooseberries, raspberries, blueberries. These woody plants thrive in partial shade and add harvest. Below the shrubs, the herbaceous layer spreads: mint, lemon, balm, comfrey, rhubarb, kale. They form a lush, useful green carpet. Finally, the ground itself, the ground cover layer. Strawberries, creeping thyme protecting soil and suppressing weeds. Below the surface is the root layer. Potatoes, Jerusalem, artichokes, onions, weaving through all layers. The vine layer. Grapes, kiwi, climbing trees, and trellises to use vertical space. Together, these layers create a three-dimensional garden, a living architecture that supports abundance. One of the most important principles that allows a food forest to produce for so many years is its reliance on perennial plants. In the world of gardening, plants are often thought of in two main groups: annuals, perennials. Annuals are plants that complete their entire life cycle in a single year. They sprout from a seed, grow, produce fruit or seeds, and then die. Many of our most common farm crops, like wheat, corn, lettuce, are annuals. They require us to prepare the soil and sow new seeds every single spring, a cycle of constant and demanding labour. Perennials, on the other hand, are plants that live for many years. Trees, shrubs, many herbs, some root crops. Once a perennial plant is established, it comes back year after year without needing to be replanted. An apple tree, once it matures, can produce fruit for 50 years or more. A clump of rhubarb can be harvested every spring for a decade. A hazelnut bush can provide nuts for a generation. This longevity is the key to the food forest's steady, low-effort productivity over time. By focusing on perennials, the food forest builds a permanent living structure. The deep roots of trees and shrubs anchor the soil, preventing it from washing away in heavy rains. These extensive root systems also become incredibly efficient at finding water and nutrients deep in the earth, making the plants more resilient during dry spells. As these plants grow larger and more established each year, their capacity to produce food also increases. A young fruit tree might give only a handful of apples, but a mature tree can provide hundreds of pounds of fruit, season after season. This long-term approach changes the gardener's relationship with time. Instead of the frantic rush of spring planting and autumn harvest, the food forest encourages a more patient and observant pace. The work is one of gentle guidance rather than yearly reconstruction. Prune a branch here, add a layer of mulch there, and harvest the bounty as it ripens. The system, once it finds its balance, largely takes care of itself. The plants settle into their homes, their roots intertwine. The true heart of a food forest is not found in the branches above, but in the dark, rich earth below. The health and vitality of the entire system depend on the life within the soil. In a natural forest, no one comes to till the ground or add artificial fertilizers. Instead, the forest feeds itself. Each autumn, trees and plants shed their leaves, which fall to the ground and form a protective blanket. This layer is made of fallen leaves, twigs, and other organic matter, and is known as leaf litter. It is the beginning of a miraculous process of renewal. This blanket of leaves does many important things. It shields the soil from harsh sun and drying winds, helping it to retain precious moisture. Rain that falls on this spongy layer does not run off. Instead, it soaks in slowly, recharging groundwater. The mulch also suppresses unwanted weeds, reducing the need to constantly pull them. It provides sheltered habitat for beneficial creatures: earthworms, beetles. Beneath the leaf litter, a hidden world is hard at work. A vast community of soil life begins decomposition. Fungi, bacteria, insects, earthworms. They slowly break down the organic material, transforming it into dark, crumbly humus. This humus is the essence of fertile soil. It's packed with nutrients plants need to grow strong and healthy. Plants draw these nutrients up through their roots. In time, they return them by shedding leaves, completing the cycle. This slow building of soil gives the food forest enduring fertility. Unlike a conventional farm field where soil can become depleted and compacted, the soil in a food forest grows richer, deeper, and more alive each year. Certain plants, known as nitrogen fixers, draw nitrogen from the air and store it in their roots, enriching the soil for their neighbours. This quiet cooperation, plants, soil, and tiny organisms, creates a resilient, self-fertilizing system that keeps giving. Echoes from the past. The ancient roots of forest gardening. The idea of a food forest may seem innovative to many of us today, but it is in fact one of the oldest forms of land use on the planet. For thousands of years, indigenous and traditional peoples across the globe have been cultivating food in this way. These ancient systems, often called forest gardens or home gardens, were born from a deep, intimate knowledge of the local environment. They were not seen as separate from the wild, but as an extension of it, a carefully managed piece of nature that provided for the community's needs for food, medicine, building materials. In the humid tropics, these forest gardens reached an incredible level of diversity. For example, the Chaga people on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania have maintained complex agroforestry systems for centuries. Their multi-layered gardens combine banana coffee under the shade of taller timber and fruit trees. These gardens provide a stable food supply and income, all while protecting the soil on the steep mountain slopes. Similarly, in Kerala, India, traditional homestead gardens have long integrated dozens of species, including coconuts, black pepper vines, mango trees, medicinal herbs, all on a single small plot. These practices were not limited to the tropics. In temperate climates, evidence suggests that ancient peoples also managed woodlands to favour useful species. In the Americas, long before European arrival, many indigenous groups practiced a form of agroforestry, planting groves of nut trees like chestnuts, hickories, and encouraging the growth of fruit-bearing shrubs, edible roots. They understood which plants grew well together and how to gently shape the landscape to increase its abundance without destroying its essential character. These were not just places to get food. They were living pantries and pharmacies. This ancient knowledge was passed down through generations, not in textbooks, but through stories, practices, and direct observation. People knew the names and uses of hundreds of different plants. They understood the subtle signs of the seasons and the intricate relationships between plants, animals, and the soil. This wisdom was deeply practical, honed by centuries of trial and error. It represents a profound understanding of how to live as a part of the ecosystem, rather than apart from it. These ancient food forests stand as a quiet testament to a more integrated and sustainable way of life. The abundant yield. Why diversity creates so much? A common question: how can a chaotic food forest be more productive than a neat farm? The answer: diversity leads to stability and abundance. Monoculture. One crop, a very simple system. A food forest, highly complex. Complexity is its greatest strength. It uses resources more completely and efficiently, yielding more from the same land. First, stacking plants in multiple layers uses space better. Cornfield, one layer at one height. Nuts from the high canopy, apples from the trees below, berries from the shrubs, herbs from the ground, all at once. A small backyard food forest can produce astonishing variety and quantity, like turning a 2D field into a 3D living pantry, making use of every cubic foot of space and sunlight. Second, diversity creates a staggered harvest season. Wheat farm. One massive harvest. Food forest. Harvest spread over months. Strawberries in late spring, raspberries in summer, apples and pears in autumn. Nuts as winter approaches. Even in cold months, root vegetables from protected soil. Continuous rolling harvest, which like a steady stream for a family. Not a single glut that must be processed and stored. Finally, plant diversity builds resilience. Monoculture, a pest or disease, can wipe out the whole crop. Food forest. Natural predators keep most pests in check. A pest that likes apples ignores nut trees and berry bushes. Biological diversity. A natural insurance policy. If one crop fails, others still thrive, guaranteeing there is always something to eat. A forgotten path. The rise of the single-crop farm. If food forests are so productive and resilient, why are they so rare in the modern world? Why did we move away from these diverse ancient systems? The answer lies in the profound changes that swept across the globe over the last 2 centuries, particularly with the rise of industrial agriculture. The focus shifted from feeding a local community to producing vast quantities of a few specific commodities for a global market. This new approach required a different kind of landscape, one that was simple, uniform, and above all, compatible with machinery. The invention and proliferation of heavy machinery, like the tractor and the combine harvester, fundamentally reshaped farming. These machines are incredibly efficient, but only when working in large, flat, open fields that are free of obstacles. Trees, shrubs, and the gentle contours of the land became impediments to progress. To make way for the machines, forests were cleared, hedgerows were torn out, and the rich tapestry of the traditional farm landscape was simplified into vast, unbroken plains of a single crop. The food forest, with its complex structure and mix of plants, was simply not designed for this new, mechanized way of working. Pests, which thrive in monocultures, were controlled with chemical sprays. This approach severed the intricate connections between plant soil and insects that are the hallmark of a food forest, replacing a living system with an industrial process. This simplification had profound consequences. While it succeeded in producing enormous amounts of cheap food, it came at a cost. Soil health declined, biodiversity plummeted, and the landscape became more vulnerable to drought and disease. The deep, local knowledge of plants and ecosystems that had been passed down for generations began to fade, as it was no longer seen as necessary. The old ways of forest gardening were viewed as inefficient and old-fashioned, a relic of a bygone era. The path of agriculture narrowed, focusing on a few high-yield crops and leaving the wisdom of the food forest behind. Returning to the garden. The modern rediscovery. Today, there is a gentle but growing movement to rediscover these old ways. People are becoming aware of the environmental costs of industrial agriculture and seeking a deeper connection to their food. The idea of the food forest is experiencing a renaissance. All around the world, in suburban backyards, in community parks, on small farms, people are beginning to plant the seeds of these new yet ancient gardens. Often associated with permaculture, this movement blends traditional wisdom with modern ecological insights. These food forests are being created by people from all walks of life. A family might transform their grassy lawn into a productive oasis, planting fruit trees, planting berry bushes, planting perennial herbs. A community group might work together to convert a neglected piece of public land into a shared garden that provides free, fresh food. These projects are often small in scale, but their impact is significant. They reconnect people to the source of their food and teach how nature works. Creating a modern food forest is thoughtful design and patient observation. It begins with understanding the place, the climate, the soil type, the amount of sunlight. Gardeners then select plants that will thrive, often favoring native species, and hardy, disease-resistant varieties. They build soil using compost. They add mulch. They attract beneficial insects by planting flowers. It is a creative and empowering process, a way of actively shaping an environment to be more beautiful, productive, and alive. The rediscovery is about more than growing food. It's about remembering our place within the natural world. It teaches us to be producers, not just consumers. That abundance can be cultivated through cooperation with nature, not domination. These small, layered gardens are pockets of hope and resilience. They show a different way is possible, a quieter, gentler, more enduring way to feed ourselves, our families, our communities, learning from the timeless wisdom of the forest. We are learning, once again, to respect the old knowledge. Sometimes the most powerful farming systems are not new technologies, but ancient ideas that worked in harmony with nature.